Hi, my name is Damien Wills, Chief Pilot and owner of GoFly Aviation. I'd like to welcome you today to how to pass your flight test and biennial flight review with ease. Make sure you arrive early before your flight test and never rush a daily or pre-flight inspection. When taxiing, make sure you have a good lookout and allow plenty of clearance when taxiing. Make sure you don't taxi any faster than a brisk walking pace. I will fail a student if they taxi too fast, and use the brake sparingly. Also important to make sure your ailerons are pointing into wind if you're taxiing with a crosswind. Other important note is to protect the nose wheel. Smooth the control column rearward if in a tricycle aircraft to protect the nose wheel from rough ground. But in the flight test, and I've said this before, that the main thing you need to do is take your time. I've had more students fail from rushing their flight test than any other reason. Okay, when you rush, you make mistakes. So slow it down. Remember, we're flying a recreational aircraft. It's not a commercial operation. There's no need to be in a hurry.
Dropping in the Kamucha seat, Delhi. Charlie 9 with Van Andrew is back correcting runway 06 for departure via Bribey to the Gold Coast.
The other important thing we need to keep in mind is to make sure that we do a thorough engine run-up and pre-flight check before we take off. And that means obviously moving the aircraft into wind. Very important, the aircraft is situated into wind prior to our run-ups. And we use the checklist, and we do it thoroughly and slowly and methodically. A lot of students try and rush through the pre-flight checklist because, one, they want to get the test over and done with. Two, they think, well, the chief pilot's watching me, I better hurry up, so they tend to rush it. So if you're feeling rushed, stop, take a breather, and then take your time with the pre-flight checklist. And it's easy to skip something, so take your time and read the checklist clearly. And it's very important that you tactile feel each instrumentation that you're to check, not just look at it. So I, as a chief pilot, know that you've actually thoroughly checked and confirmed that that part of the sequence has been completed, has been identified, checked and completed. Another important aspect of the license test, and I can tell whether a student's really ready or not, is the pre-takeoff safety brief. So sometimes I get them to do it before the holding point. If there's no aircraft around, it's okay to do it on the runway just prior to takeoff. And I just ask them to verbalise the pre-takeoff safety brief. So today we quickly do our final checks. Canopy locked, flaps on, all switches are on, fuel on, and seatbelt secure. They're my safety brief, which I'd expect the student to do, either before the holding point or, as I said, if there's no aircraft on the runway is okay, providing it's quick. Is if my engine fails before 500 feet at this aerodrome, I will land up to 10 degrees either side of the nose, adopt best glide speed, and once I'm committed to full flap, everything off, and a mayday call if I get time. I know this airport well, so there's a field just to the left after takeoff. Once I'm on crosswind and above 600 feet, I have the option of landing on the cross runway here, which will be to my left, runway 12. Okay, and that's our pre-takeoff safety brief. Okay, the first thing I look at is to make sure on a flight test, or a flight review for that matter, is that the student uses all the available runway and make sure that they are on the centre line, or at least have the centre line between their legs on takeoff, and that the rudder is centralised. Come to full stop, our pre-takeoff safety checks. I just work from top to bottom, canopy closed, flap set, all switches are on, fuel is set, brakes are off. Seatbelt secure. I've already done my pre-takeoff safety brief before, and we can roll. Give my radio call. Caloundra traffic, Sling 8340, rolling runway 12, departing upwind to the southeast, Caloundra. Make sure you apply the power smoothly and evenly over about 3 seconds. And also make sure that the student checks that the airspeed is alive. Yes, we have sufficient RPM above 4,800 in these Rotax. Everything's in the green, all looking good. Bit of back pressure, and we're away.
Traffic, Cessna 172 Romeo Alpha, Quebec, is 2 miles north of the field, 1,600 to overfly for race.
Traffic, Whiskey Echo Bar, turning base, runway 12, grass left for auto, Caloundra.
300 feet, flaps up. That's 300 feet AGL, listening. Confirm flaps up, and climb out at 75 knots. What I really want to see on a flight test is that the student has a really good lookout as soon as we're airborne for other traffic. Okay, what I'll do then is ask the student to climb out to the training area. What I like to see during the test is to make sure that the student lowers the nose every 500 feet, check out for any traffic that might be climbing up towards us, and also the temperatures and pressures are in the green, and then continue their climb. Once we're out in the training area, what I like to see is the students having another good look out for any traffic. What I'll ask the student to do then is ask them to do just a medium level turn to the right, 360 degrees, maintaining their current height. So what I'm looking for first of all is the lookout. So we teach at our school that a really good lookout, so I'm going to turn to the right now, so I'm going to clear my left, looking all over the shoulder, clear my centre, and clear my right. Once I'm satisfied, then my eyes forward. What I don't want to see is this sort of look, and then turn. Okay, I want to see that head go right over the shoulder, all the way back on the horizon. Yep, clearing my left, scanning as I come around, clearing my centre, then scanning all the way over your shoulder to your right, and then back again. Once I'm satisfied with it, then can conduct a medium level turn like such. In the turn, I'm looking for accuracy, with maintaining plus or minus 50 feet would be the maximum. Depends on the conditions of the day. Their eyes are forward every now and then, yeah, a quick glance, and then eyes back to the front again. As I said, I'm looking for accuracy in the turn. And I also normally get them to roll out on a point. So for instance, we have the Glasshouse Mountains to our right here. I'll ask them during this, and okay, can you please roll out now onto your Glasshouse Mountains, the large mountain here in the centre. Just see how accurately they can roll out onto that point like such. Once I'm satisfied with that, I'll ask them to do a steep turn, then usually the other way, so a steep turn to the left. Once again, I'm looking for a really good lookout, particularly for the steep turn. So clear my right, clear my centre, clear my left, no aircraft, usually a little increase in RPM to take into account the steep turn, and I'll get to see how accurate they are like such in the steep turn. How good their rudder authority is, how much back pressure they have to maintain that turn. Once again, plus or minus 50 feet. Quick look out into the turn, make sure there's no aircraft. Then eyes forward again on the horizon during the turn, and quite often I'll get them to roll out onto a point again just to see how accurate they are. Great. Okay, once again, plus or minus 50 feet. It's a steep turn. At that point, I'll usually ask them that I want to see a stall, and I'll usually say, okay, well, set yourself up for a standard zero flap idle power stall for me. I don't normally say do the hassle check because I expect the student to know that they have to do a hassle check when they do the stall. So if they forget the hassle check, I might sometimes prompt them saying, oh, have you forgotten something before they start? If they still forget to do it, then it's an instant fail if they forget to do the hassle check. Very important to do it, so it's height sufficient to recover above 3,000 feet. Airframe is clean, our flaps are up, we've trimmed for level flight. If you had undercarriage, retractable undercarriage, the undercarriage will be up. Switches, all switches that are required are on. We've got a fuel boost pump that goes on. And security, yep, my seatbelt's secure, canopy's locked, nothing's going to fly around the cabin. Our E for engine temperatures are all in the green, all looking good. Our location, we're not above a built-up area, no houses below us. If we do have an engine failure, there's a field down here we can land in, and then it's a lookout. So that's why I did commence I asked them to do the turn before the stall, so we've already had a good lookout. If you've taken a bit of time to do the hassle checks, then I'll get them to do another 360-degree turn to clear the airspace of any traffic. So what am I looking for in a stall? Okay, quite simply is power back to idle, eyes forward, keep moving the control column rearward to maintain level. Keep moving the control column rearward, keep moving it rearward, keep moving it rearward. The stall warning goes off. Keep pulling back until we get a buffet. Nose drop, bit of a wing drop, yep, to the left, right rudder. Move the control column forward till the airspeed builds up 60 knots and we pull back once we're level with the horizon. Full power, right rudder. And climb away at 70 knots in the sling. Once it's safe to do so, and we have a positive rate of climb, we can level off. The main thing I'm looking at is a minimal loss of height. So look, in the sling aircraft, anything under 200 feet is good. Depending on what aircraft you have for the flight test may vary with your chief pilot. But 100 to 200 feet is pretty normal and would be a good outcome for a loss of height in a standard stall with zero flap. Okay, if I'm happy with that, then I'll ask them to do a stall with some flap, and I'll ask them to leave a bit of power on as well. So a little bit of power on, introduce full flap once we're in the flap limiting speed. Once again, I'm looking for, see how they recover with flap, and also if we can get a wing drop, if they make the correct recovery technique for that wing drop. But keep pulling back, stall warning, buffet, wing drop to the right, left rudder, move the control column forward. As we recover above 60 knots, move the control column rearward, full power, 70 knots in the sling, right rudder, and once we've got a positive rate of climb, we slowly retract the flaps, then adjust our attitude to maintain 70 knots and retract the flap in stages. So what I'm looking for in the stall is that the student doesn't use any aileron. There's this tendency that if we get a big wing drop, the student might panic and want to use aileron to recover that wing. We must use opposite rudder. So it's worth practicing that at home so it becomes instinctual and natural.
I have failed many students for not being able to accurately identify the stall. Depending on your aircraft type, sometimes a clean stall break is not clearly noticeable. When this happens, the student does not recognise that the aircraft has actually stalled and is just mushing through the air. So be warned, check your indicated airspeed and check your VSI. If you're descending rapidly and your indicated airspeed remains constant at or below the stall speed, then your aircraft's not flying, the aircraft is stalled.
Okay, the first thing I look at is to make sure on a flight test, or a flight review for that matter, is that the student uses all the available runway and make sure that they are on the centre line, or at least have the centre line between their legs on takeoff and that the rudder is centralised. Come to full stop, our pre-takeoff safety checks. I just work from top to bottom, canopy closed, flap set, all switches are on, fuel is set, brakes are off. You should have already done your pre-takeoff safety brief by now, but if you haven't, there's no aircraft around, it's okay to do it now. So I'll just run through that again. Pre-takeoff safety brief for runway 12 at Caloundra is if I have an engine failure below 500 feet, I will move the control column forward and adopt best glide speed. Today it will be 65 knots under the current conditions. I know there's a field to my right, so I will land in the field to my right if I'm below 500. I will select full flap, give a radio call if I can, and all switches off and fuel off. Once I'm above 500 feet, I have the option then of landing straight ahead on the sandbank in Palmerstone Passage, or if I've turned on to crosswind, I have an option today due to the wind of landing on the cross runway of runway 05. Make sure you apply the power smoothly and evenly over about 3 seconds. And also make sure that the student checks that the airspeed is alive. Yes, we have sufficient RPM above 4,800 in these Rotax. Everything's in the green, all looking good. Bit of back pressure, and we're away.
Traffic 172 Romeo Alpha Quebec, 2 miles north.
300 feet, flaps up. 500 feet, a really good lookout. Clear my left, clear my centre, clear my right. And I want to see that the student is maintaining their climb speed of 70 knots in the turn and under crosswind. And also making allowance for any wind. Looking out for downwind, making sure there's no aircraft that haven't given a radio call that might be joining downwind. Clear my left, clear my centre, clear my right. Eyes forward as I turn onto downwind. Levelling off at 1,000 feet. Power back. Looking forward, but also having a look at my runway. And wings level before you commence your pre-landing checks. Your eyes should be outside in the turn and forward, looking out for other traffic in the circuit area. I want to hear the pre-landing check, so brakes, undercarriage, mixed jar. Up is on, prop is fixed, fuel sufficient for the flight. Instruments check left to right. Switches, hatches and harnesses all secure. Power back to idle, abeam to threshold. Looking that the flaps are selected under the flap landing speed, and the radio call and a good lookout's given before you turn on to base. Flight traffic Sling 8340, standing base runway 12, touch and go Caloundra. What I'm looking for on their base and final is accurate speed and also a good lookout. I want to make sure we have a good lookout on the final approach to make sure there's no aircraft coming straight in. And a good scan, so it's attitude, airspeed, runway. Attitude, airspeed, runway.
Caloundra traffic, helicopter Whiskey Echo for Buzz.
Next stage flap.
We'll make a 1 right hand orbit, overhead the airfield at 800. Caloundra.
Turning on to our final, we've got a bit of sync. What I want to make sure is that the if there's any sync, that the student catches a sync, it doesn't end up dragging the aircraft in with power on final approach. Once we're above the desired glide approach, because we've got flap out now, we lower the nose and we bring the power off ever so slowly. Make sure that you keep a healthy airspeed all the way down. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet, pull back, fly level with the runway. When we feel sync, we start to pull back gently, don't rush it, and we land. Flap up, trim at the same time, eyes at the front, and increase power slowly. RPM sufficient, airspeed alive, and we're airborne.
Remember to have good attitude and airspeed control throughout the flight test. Good rudder authority is also vitally important. And make sure you memorise your pre-landing checks. And obviously a good lookout is very important throughout the entire flight test.
And another important factor is that if we see an aircraft on the runway, that the student goes around. This situation, the aircraft's landed long, has me able to get off the runway in time, so I need to let it go around. So go around full power straight away, adopt the climb attitude. Flaps up if required, trim the aircraft and move to the non-active side.
Remember, every landing is a failed go around, so be ready to go around at any moment. You will also need to demonstrate to the chief pilot or pilot examiner that you can handle a crosswind landing, either a wing down into wind technique or a crab into wind technique, or a mixture of the both will satisfy the examiner or chief pilot. What we're looking for is good airspeed control, and make sure that you are aligned with the center line and that the aircraft is aligned with the runway when you land.
And what I'll normally do is I'm happy with that landing, I'll get on takeoff, and I'll usually cut the power on takeoff, making sure that, simulating engine failure, making sure that they lower the nose straight away, 70 knots, and they're only going to land up to 10 degrees either side of the nose. So in this situation we're going to land on that sandbank, full flap, mayday call, everything off, and that's the best we can do. What I'm looking for is that the student doesn't turn back towards the field below that safe height. Okay, if I'm happy with that, usually on the downwind leg then, I will simulate another engine failure, cutting the engine. What I want to see is that the student adopts best glide speed and heads towards the field straight away.
Climb traffic, flying 8340, mid down runway 12, knots down to circuit flight approach, full clock Calandra.
Best glide speed, they head towards the field. And they give a mayday call out if they get time. Mayday, 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 climb traffic, mayday, 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 sling 8340, complete engine failure, runway 12 Calandra, that is it. Once they've selected their field, make sure that they do make safe check, all switches off, fuel off except for my master for flap. But my base area, will I get in there? Most definitely. First stage flap. As I commence the turn, I can still decide, will I get in there still? Most definitely. Second stage. Will I get in there? Yes, most definitely. Full flap.
I will not pass a student if they undershoot the runway in an emergency and try and stretch the glide and let their airspeed get too low.
Okay, flapless landing, just slow the aircraft down. Because we haven't got flaps out, we don't have as much drag, so we need to be thinking ahead a bit more, make our circuit a lot wider. Our descent profile will be a lot shallower as well. Now while I teach glide approaches with the flapless landing, it's okay to use some power to control your descent profile.
Canada traffic, Sierra Limited and Sierra runway 23.
Looking out final approach, no aircraft, coming straight in.
Climb traffic, flying 8340, it's final runway 23, full clock Calandra.
Okay, and just when the student's feeling relaxed, that's when usually I'll spring on them by pulling the power back and giving them an engine failure. First thing I want to see is that they adopt best glide speed, at the same time head towards their chosen field. What I want to see is that they adopt best glide speed in the sling at 65 to 70 knots, depending on your weight. And they've already selected a field. What I don't want to see in a flight test is that the student hasn't already selected a field or takes too long to select a field. Either one, to me, is poor airmanship, and if they pick a really bad field or they just can't find one in a reasonable amount of time, I will usually fail them on the flight test. Okay, so I've got a field down here, and I want to see that the student heads directly towards the field, and that they've got a plan of action in place in relation to where they're travelling in relation to the field, in relation to their window alpha and window bravo, or high key and low key points. What I want to see is the procedures flow nice and smoothly. So, for instance, our engine's just failed. First thing I want to do is do a restart check. So, key is on, all switches that are required on. I might change the fuel tank, set the throttle, turn the key, and nothing happening. It is a real engine failure. From then it flows on to our mayday call. So, switch to a frequency where someone who's been paid by the government is actually sitting in a chair listening to you. So, in this situation, it would be Brisbane Centre. So, switch it across to Brisbane Centre, and it would simply be mayday, 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 sling 8340, complete engine failure, approximately 7 nautical miles south-southwest of Caloundra. We'll be landing on a turf farm off Pumice Passage. We are a low-wing sling aircraft with 2 POB, single engine. Okay, and that would be it for the mayday call. Next thing will be a passenger brief. So I want to make sure the student is actually planning to fly. So I've got the field down here. I'm over the top now at my high key point, 1600 feet. We'll then want to fly a tighter than normal circuit towards our base area, keeping in mind where the wind is coming from. Today the wind is light and variable. Okay, then let's have a passenger brief. So it's okay, we've had an engine failure. We're going to be landing in the field down below. Wouldn't mind getting all your sharp objects such as your glasses or any pens and put in the pocket beside you. Make sure your seatbelt's nice and tight. If you've got an aircraft that you can unlock the canopy and secure it safely while still flying, do that. Otherwise, just keep it locked. And we'll have a conversation once we're on the ground. Under my window Bravo or low key now at 1,000 feet. Turn 45 degrees to the field. Will I make it in? Most definitely. So I'm going to select first stage flap. Now I'm going to turn 90 degrees to my field. How am I looking? Yep, definitely going to get in. I'm going to use second stage flap, and then I could use full flap coming around to land on the field. We're at sea level here. We can't go below 500 feet, so we're going to go full power and climb away. I'll tell the student not below 500 feet during the emergency practice. And all I want to see is that the flaps get retracted slowly on the go around. So for a precautionary search and landing, I'll get the student to do, so it's basically overfly the field at 1,000 feet, just have a visual inspection of the field to see whether it's suitable. I'll then get them to do a 500 foot downwind to have another good visual check of the field. If they're still happy with the field, they can then do an approach and a flyby with flap at 200 feet to make sure that they're still satisfied with the field. If they're still happy with the condition of the field, then to
Caloundra 4-star 3978 is rolling runway 05.
Go into a normal circuit and land. What I'm looking for in a precautionary search is that the student identifies an appropriate field that's got a good undershoot and overshoot area. What I want to see is for an inbound is that once we've completed all the upper air work and the emergency out in the training area, I'll get the student to take me back to the airport, and I want to make sure that their radio calls are accurate and they give a proper position report when they're giving their inbound call. And I also do like to teach a student to give a time when they're going to be arriving overhead the field. Cloud traffic fling 8340 is 10 nautical mile to the south, inbound 1500. Estimate circuit time 46, Caloundra traffic.
You should be able to fly and land the aircraft safely with no indicated airspeed, altimeter or vertical speed indicator. You should also be able to safely handle a simulated radio failure. I'll often simulate an engine fire during a flight test as well. And what I'm looking for is that a student can get on the ground as soon as possible safely. I'll also simulate a control failure. Can you land without the use of ailerons, rudder or elevator? Some of the airmanship things I look for on the day of the flight test. Oh, well, the first thing is when the student shows up to the airport, do they allow themselves plenty of time? Many students do not pass their flight test because they rush their procedures, so slow down. Make sure you memorize your store checklist and pre-landing checklist. A good lookout for aircraft at all times, in particular every time you change direction. I will fail a student if they neglect to look out before they turn or climb. It's very important that a student pilot on their flight test is able to communicate effectively with other aircraft at all times during the flight test. Good situational awareness with danger, restricted and control zones well known throughout the flight. During the flight test, I also looked that Aviate is always priority one. No matter what is happening, keep flying the plane. Good attitude and airspeed control is critical throughout all phases of flight during the flight test. And remember, a competent student has the ability to identify when the aircraft or their own skill level falls outside the safe parameters, and they have the ability to act quickly to reduce the risk. A good example is choosing to go around if the student balloons the aircraft on landing, or choosing another runway if that runway exceeds the student's crosswind abilities.
Okay, Jane, when you know it, engine failure. What are you going to do?
Dot best glide, 65 knots and
Yep.
trim. Turn towards field.
Yeah, so where are you landing?
On the field down here, to
Yep.
the left of us.
Okay.
And approach, so Alpha, towards the ocean side, and
Yep.
Bravo, a third the way up from our usual touchdown point.
Yep.
And check the engine restart, so fuel, master, ignition, switches, throttle, E. No engine startup, so mayday, swing 8340. Complete engine failure, landing in field, south of Caloundra, white low wing 2 POB. Passenger brief. We've just had an engine failure. I'll get you to stay calm. Please stow any loose items and brace for landing. All switches off except master and ethos. And beam threshold and first stage flaps. Coming in at 45-degree angle. Second stage flaps. And I'll go below 500, so I'm going around. Brief power. Flaps up.
That was good, Jane. I was satisfied we'd get in there. And well done for going around to 500 feet. Okay, so we're going to climb to 1,500 and take me back to Caloundra, please. Yeah, watch your height threshold. Okay, Jane, let's just say your flaps didn't come up at 300 feet. What would you do?
I would keep climbing, but maintain my speed below 85 or 80 knots.
Yep.
And do a circuit, but maintain my speed below 80 knots the whole way to land.
Yep.
Brakes, big carriage, mixture, magnetos, fuel, instrument switches, I
Okay, I'll do the radio call now.
Flight traffic, flying 8340 is now change runways, is rejoining circuit for downwind runway 23, conducting a crosswind landing for a full stop. Caloundra traffic.
Okay, we're going to do a crosswind landing now on runway 23. We're now downwind runway 23, so I want you to just give me a standard crosswind landing and a full stop.
Well, the good news is that Jane passed her flight test. It's also important to note that her flight accuracy was not perfect. However, her airmanship, procedures, and situational awareness were conducted to a very high standard. The main questions I ask myself when I'm putting a student through a flight test is, are they competent? Are you safe? Do you display good airmanship and decision making? The other thing I want to make sure is that, can you keep it together in an emergency situation? Remember, a review is not a flight test, although you may be asked to fly sequences similar to your flight test. While a legal requirement that all recreational pilots conduct a flight review every 2 years, it is important to see it as an opportunity to improve some vital skills or knowledge gap you may be missing. It is also important to be honest with your instructor or CFI of any weaknesses you may need to revisit during the flight review. As a CFI, the most common currency issues I find with pilots during the BFR is lack of emergency procedures, crosswind, and lack of stall practice. Many pilots admit to me during a BFR that they have not practiced any emergencies or stalls since their last BFR. If you have a navigation endorsement, expect to be asked to prepare a flight plan and possibly fly a mini NavX.
Okay, Linda. So you mentioned in the classroom before we parted that you haven't done, you're still quite nervous about stalls, and you've done no stall practice since your last biennial flight review. So I'm going to spend a bit more time today on looking at the stall and making sure that you feel comfortable with the stall and the stall recovery. So first of all, do you remember your pre-stall checklist?
Yeah, that's Hassel.
Yes.
So height above 2,000.
Good morning, traffic, TechNam 3789.
Well, it's above 3,000, yep.
3,000.
AGL, yep.
ADL, okay, so then there's airframe.
Yes.
So one is seat belts and security.
So airframe's more to the point that we've got the aircraft trimmed for level flight. If you had a retractable undercarriage, it would be up, the flaps aren't up, and the aircraft is clean, ready for a stall, yep. And,
okay, so switches,
yep.
that you've got all
the switches on. If you had a backup fuel pump, you had that on, yep.
Yep. And so security.
Yes.
That would be your patches and hung. And so we got
Engine.
engine and
So temperature and pressures are all in the green.
There's no ice.
Yep.
And location, not above a built-up area.
Yep. And you forgot the lookout. So we need to have a really good lookout for any aircraft that might be above us or below us, because we'll be losing some height, and also around us. So I recommend doing a full 360-degree turn, which you can do now to have a good lookout for aircraft.
Okay, so here left, here centre, right, no, and right.
Yep, that'll do. We can cut in the other one. And okay, Linda, when you're ready, give me a standard stall. Bring the power back, give me a standard stall and stall recovery with a minimal loss of height.
Okay, so power back.
Yep.
Nose back, or the stick back. Uh, 60 knots, and then power all the way on, down the climb.
Okay, up control.
Handing over.
Okay, that wasn't too bad. You probably got the power on a little bit early. So yeah, you did identify the stall. The aircraft did stall. You moved the control column forward, which is good, but you pretty much brought on that power. As soon as you moved the control forward, you put on the power straight away. Which, you know, when you move the control column forward, if we've got the nose pointing towards the ground and you bring on power, all you're doing there is accelerating towards the ground. So better to wait. I'll give you a demonstration. So bring the power back, eyes out the front, move the control column rearward, keep pulling back, keep pulling back. Yep, we've got a high angle of attack, low airspeed, stall warning, buffet. There's our stall, but we can drop left rudder. Move the control column forward, let the airspeed build up first to a safe airspeed, then move the control column rearward. When we're level with the horizon, then full power, and then climb away at our climb away airspeed, which is 70 knots in the sling. So we lost a little bit less height then, and it just means that you're not accelerating towards the ground with power.
Okay.
So have a go at that, Linda.
Right, yeah.
You have control?
Okay, again, taking over. So power all the way back. And back. So
Move the control column rearward yet a bit more than full power now. All the way, full power.
All the way.
And then climb away at 70 knots. Good. So that's a bit better. Still added the power on a little bit early, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So look, you're definitely well and truly safe to practice that by yourself. So just have after the VFR today, or next time you go for a fly, I suggest you just practice one of those by yourself.
Okay.
Okay, let's head back towards the airfield and we'll do some circuits.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I sincerely hope that you pass your recreational flight test and you have no issues with your biannual flight review the first time. If you do, don't be discouraged. Look at it as an opportunity to learn something new, and I'm sure you will eventually pass either your flight test or your biannual flight review. Happy and safe flying, and I'll see you next time.